Didn't that sound like the intro for like a superhero thing? When these two colors combine together. Happy video day, guys, and happy Make Up Your Mind day. So today's Make Up Your Mind is going to be all about a brand new palette that released from Kylie Cosmetics, and that is the Stormy palette. I don't know if you guys have seen the release, so I wanted to have this up as soon as possible to see if it is worth it for me to purchase this palette, because what we do here on Make Up Your Mind, if you're new to this series, is I look through my collection to find similar hues to eyeshadow palettes that are currently releasing in order for me to decide whether a palette is worth it for me to pick up. Now, this is also something I would love for you guys to do at home with me. Go through your collection. Don't just go out and run and buy those eyeshadow palettes. Sit back, look through your collection, see if you have similar hues, because there is a huge chance you may not have to buy the palette because you might actually already own these shades. It's actually releasing pretty soon. Actually, by the time this video airs, it might release, because I just found out right now that I need to throw a video in front of this one because there's a Natasha Denona palette releasing that I need to start doing my detective work on. But anyways, we're going to talk about the Stormy palette. We're going to look at all of the swatches, kind of decide whether this is a palette that I need to add to my collection. And yeah, we've got a lot of stuff to go over here. I actually had to jump into 4 different palettes to find similar hues, but I think I did a pretty decent job on this one. And let me just tell you, the more and more I do this series, the more and more I realize that I have a lot of eyeshadow palettes and a lot of colors can totally be created. Let's go ahead and let's get into this. There's a lot of information to go over, and let's get into it right now. So as of right now, I actually don't know the price of this palette because it is releasing on February 1st, and I'm filming this before then. So if I know the price of the palette while I'm editing this video, I will throw it up here. So that's how much the Stormy palette is going to cost. And I was able to find some similar colors in my collection, guys. I am going to show you the results of what I found, but I did use 4 different palettes. A lot of the colors came from one palette, but I did have to throw in a couple of palettes to kind of mix some hues together to come out with that perfect color. So the palettes that I used were the Carli Bybel palette. So this is the Anastasia Carli Bybel palette. I also used the ColourPop It's My Pleasure palette, and then I had to jump into a Riviera palette for like 2 hues. This is also from Anastasia, and I actually used the Natasha Denona Mini Lila as a mixer shade in order to darken up one of the shades that I found. But yeah, those are the palettes that I really jumped into, and I honestly think, guys, that if you guys see the results, I was able to kind of recreate this palette somewhat. The swatches that I am using is the Trend Mood 1 swatches. I also looked at her Insta story and kind of referenced back and forth to kind of get an idea of what the colors are looking like. At the moment that I created this video and actually looked for the swatches, there is no images on her website or any swatches on her website of the palette. So I had to kind of just look through the Trend Mood one and also use the Insta stories to kind of get an idea of hues. And I think we have some similar hues here. Like I always say, these aren't supposed to be perfect. I'm not looking for exact dupes. I'm just looking for similarities that when you put them on the lid, nobody's gonna tell the difference. So let's see if I was able to save some money here and if I don't need to buy this palette. So let's go ahead and let's throw that Stormy palette on the screen and let's see what I was able to find. So we're gonna start off with the first shade. Now this shade is a brown with some gray in it. I feel like I just saw this shade and I automatically referenced this one to the Carli Bybel palette because I remember when I saw this shade Bowie right here, I think it's called Bowie or Bowie. I thought that this shade right here looks so similar, and it really is, guys. Like when you swatch this color, that is almost the exact tone as the color that's inside the Stormy palette. At least from the swatches, this looks pretty spot on. Now, it wouldn't be a shocker to me if it is a very, very similar hue because this seems to be a hue that I'm seeing in a few different palettes. So I'm thinking that this may be a thing for the spring, summer. And I actually like this color. It's a really pretty color. It's a color I like in the Carli Bybel palette. And if you guys look at Carli Bybel, it kind of reminds me a little bit of this palette in the essence of it. There's kind of like a similarity going on here. When I saw this color, I kind of said, okay, I already have that. I really don't need that color. That's a color that I use a lot out of Carli Bybel, and I like it a lot. And like I've said, I need to start using these palettes. They're not gonna last forever. So Carli Bybel definitely has that one. So if we move on to the next shade. So now the next shade is this really cool purple, and I am not a huge purple person. I like purple, and I really should wear purple more often, but I don't know why, it's just not a color that I always put on my lids. So I did find this color right here called Kitten Fish inside of the ColourPop It's My Pleasure palette. And I feel like this color right here, I mean, you are gonna get like almost the same exact tone. Like that looks almost identical. I do not think that there is a difference here. Now, I do know ColourPop manufactures Kylie Cosmetics, so this just looks like a similar shade. Like, I feel like that's going to be almost identical. I feel like I have this shade. That shade for me is a no-brainer. I don't need it. I don't even hardly use this palette that often, to be honest. So for me personally, I was already like, okay, it's not a big deal to be skipping out on the Stormy palette as of right now. These two shades I have, I use Bowie a lot, hardly ever use this shade. Okay, so we're good. Right now I'm thinking I don't need this palette. So now if you keep on going, there's a few colors in here that are exciting to me though, that I really do like. So that's why I really wanted to do this, because together the color story really called my attention. I like the color story a lot, but of course I could recreate it if I have the palettes. So the next one is actually one of the colors that I had the hardest time finding, and I kind of think I know why. I don't think I'm the type of person that wears these type of like Barbie purples on my lids, and I say that it's more of a youthful purple to me. It's not like a purple that I tend to use. I like more darker purples that go into more of, not really grape, but a little bit dyed down. So this one is a little bit vibrant for me. Now, I was able to create something similar by mixing two different colors from the ColourPop palette. If you get Dew or Rough, which is this color right here, and then you lay this one down, it's way too purple. Like, that goes way too purple. But if you get a little bit of this color called Earth Shine and you kind of mix them together, you start creating a little bit more of a sheared out purple. And I was able to almost mimic that color by doing those two together. Now, I feel like the one that's inside of the Stormy palette has a lot more metallic to it, because these two colors mixed together kind of dyes down the metallic. But let's be honest, guys, this color is not a color that I want it to be super strong. It's just not a color that I would like prefer to put all over the lid. I actually like the dyed down versions that are inside of the It's My Pleasure. So when I look at this one, I'm like, okay, I kind of like the It's My Pleasure better, even though the one that's inside of the Kylie Cosmetics, this color looks like it's like super vibrant and nice and probably a good quality formula. It's just not a color that I would really grab for, you know? So I'm kind of okay not having this one 100%, and I really don't even think I would mix those two together to make that color. It's just not a color I would wear. The next color I really like though. So the next color I had a harder time finding, and I'm actually pretty shocked because I thought I was going to find this tone. And I feel like if I went into the Juvia's Place palette, the Masquerade Mini, I might have been able to find something a little bit more spot on. I jumped into the Carli Bybel and I jumped into this color called Stev. Now the reason is because Stev has a little bit of a redder undertone. This color is a little bit more red based, but it has purple in it. I jumped into the Natasha Denona palette for this color called Poison Berry to add that purple back in that was missing. And when these two colors combine together, they create, oh my God, that sounded like, didn't that sound like the intro for like a superhero thing? When these two colors combine together. When you combine these two colors together, they really turn into a really similar hue. I got that reddish purple that I really was looking for, and I think I found it. And I feel like if I really want to do that color, I can mix those two, or I can kind of use Stev on its own. And if you're mixing it with so many different layers, those colors kind of dissipate a lot, you know? And this color, and this palette that literally wants to break on me, this Natasha Denona palette, even though these colors are not exactly the same, they may do a really similar kind of thing on the lid, you know? So that color to me is one of the prettiest colors in this whole entire palette, but I feel like I can kind of mimic it, like pretty good. Like I really feel like I can mimic that color. The next color was one that shocked me because I really felt like I had this. I was like, oh my God, another metallic gold. I mean, how many metallic golds do we really need? And I looked into a few of my palettes and I had a hard time finding it. The only way that I was able to create this exact metallic, and I feel like I got it pretty good, was jumping back into Carli Bybel and grabbing My Angels. If you grab My Angels, it's too dark. It gives you a little bit too much of a dark undertoned gold. So what I had to do is grab a little bit of Inheritance from the Riviera palette. And if you grab this one and you slightly dab it on top of that color, you start to make that gold get a little bit more, you get the gold a little lighter, but it still has that bling. And I literally feel like I created almost the same color by mixing those two. And yeah, I feel like I did it. I mean, that's the color that I have on my lids right now. And I feel like that color is probably pretty spot on. Now we go into another one that I feel like I have this color. Unfortunately, the way that I have this color a lot is in pigments, which is kind of obnoxious because I hate pigments, but I do have a really similar color also in the Natasha Denona Sunrise palette. But I have this color from the Carli Bybel, and it's called Sydney. Beautiful color. Hate that it's a pigment, but this color right here is the color. Like, that is the same exact color. Now, I will tell you, I have a few other palettes that are not pigments that have that color. I just wanted to stick to the same palettes here. I didn't want to pull out like 5 million palettes. But yeah, this color Sydney is that color. That color I have. The next color I actually grabbed again from the Natasha Denona, the Mini Lila palette. It's this color right here called Flint. This is another color that I have on my lids today. And this color looks identical to the one in the Stormy palette, guys. Like, that's the same color. So when I swatched it, I said, oh my goodness, if these swatches are pretty spot on, I have that color for days. Like, I definitely have it in Flint. Flint's a beautiful color. I love this palette. I use this palette so much. So to me, not worth it again for this Kylie Cosmetics one. Do love this color story, guys. Don't get me wrong. The color story is gorgeous. Like I said, reminds me of this. For this color, I had to jump into Riviera, and it's in this color Palermo. Now, Palermo to me is basically this color. Like, if you guys have the Riviera palette, you have that color. Beautiful tone, love the tone, don't need it. I have it in Riviera. I have to use these palettes. And the last color I also found in Carli Bybel. If I jump into this color called Maud right here, it is a lighter tone gold, and it has almost that same hue that I see coming out of this new Stormy palette. The only thing that may be different here is the formula. I feel like the Stormy palette may have some more glitter in it, but like I've told you guys, I'm not a huge glitter person anyways, so I would prefer the one in the Carli Bybel palette. Guys, I have looked through all of my palettes, and I have to tell you guys, I feel like I made this color story pretty easily. I didn't have to sit here for a million years trying to find palettes. I feel like these pretty newly released palettes have a lot of these colors, and I really honestly feel like if you have Carli Bybel, you may not have all of these colors. You don't, but you have a real similar color story, and you just have to tell yourself how many of these colors would you use more than these. I feel like this is a little bit more universal color story. I feel like this one gets a little bit the fun side, but I'd rather use these for me personally. So after doing all of this and really looking at it and swatching the colors and seeing what it had, I honestly don't feel like I need this palette, like, at all, because I have Carli Bybel, and I like Carli Bybel more color story wise. And I also have Riviera, which, you know, I gotta use these. So to me personally, it's just not worth it to me. Kylie Cosmetics is one of those brands that's on the pricey side, and I have not purchased one of her palettes because of that. Kind of get like, I don't want to spend that money. So I would say for now, I have made up my mind on this one. I do not need this palette. I've got palettes that have these shades, and the shades that I love the most out of this palette are shades that I love in other palettes, and I love their formulas. So I don't see a need to have this one as well. So yeah, save myself some more money here, guys. And I hope I saved you guys some money if you guys looked in your collection and you found similar tones in other palettes. Let me know down below, were you able to find a palette that had like these similar color story in it? And I want to know below which palette they were. And thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you guys so much for the love that you guys have given me on this series. It really makes me happy. I'm hoping to now create this into a weekly series. That's my goal. As long as there's new eyeshadow palette releases, I'm thinking that we're going to make this into a weekly series. Let me know below if you're excited for that. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys later.